logistics. We are collecting our milk, and your son is present in 30,000 points, and it goes to our final consumers. High nutritional values shouldn't be lost, and our products should be delivered with the optimum temperatures, and it is really good to work with such an important company. On behalf of your son, we would like to thank Netlog Logistics. Logistics in every field of life, and Netlog Logistics is present in every logistics step. There will be this awards ceremony. 10 of our finalists in the Stars of Region are waiting to meet with you in the lunch booths. İGDAŞ will be the sponsor of this session, and the name of the session is Future of Agriculture. This session will be about the current and future studies done in Europe and Turkey in general in agriculture and animal husbandry, the action plan of sector players, and the suggestions for a sustainable agriculture sector. I would like to invite our moderator, Hakan, Ateş, the CEO of Denizbank, to the platform. And right now I would like to invite our panelists from Hacıince Group of Companies, the chairman of the board, Ahmet Hacıince. From Yıldızlar Holding, chairman of the board, Hakkı, Yıldız. President of the European Council of Young Farmers, Jens Maes. Chairman of the board, Sütaş, Muharrem, Yılmaz. Have a nice panel. Yes. Distinguished guests, this is the second session of Uludağ Economy Summit after the introduction speeches. We are actually starting to our session at the time that we had to finish, but hopefully we will have a very nice panel without boring you. I have very important speakers. Of course, we will be speaking about animals actually. But when I say animal, it is not birds or butterflies. We will be speaking about cows, milks, meat, fertilizers, such kind of stuff. So we will be speaking about this field. Of course, this topic should be spoken even to a further extent, but I don't think that it is spoken and it is discussed at the desired level, because we are speaking about a sector which is actually 25% maybe of the global volume, starting from selling seeds to selling wheat and barleys, and to the livestock, to the animal husbandry. I believe the agriculture sector is strategically important, and we will be discussing these topics together with our panelists. Muharrem, Yılmaz, the chairman of the board, Sütaş, and they are the leaders in the integrated milk production. Ahmet Hacıince from the Hacıince Group of Companies. By the way, he has 27,000 of livestock. And Hakkı, Yıldız is quite strong for the fertilizer production. And Maes He was born in 1991. When I find somebody from the Z generation in the agriculture sector, I am actually a little bit surprised, because in Japan the average people of the agricultural worker is 69. In Turkey it is 55. So a young person from Belgium, from the Flemish part, is actually becoming the president of the European Council of Young Farmers. Maybe we can actually establish such a council in Turkey, but I am not sure whether we can find young people to be a part of that council in Turkey. Well, anyway, we have very important and valuable speakers. We will start with, first of all, with the 3 minutes. So we will change the format. Very briefly, please introduce yourselves in 3 minutes, what you are doing, and then we will continue with the questions. So, let's start with Mr. Ahmet. Who are you? First of all, good morning to everyone. Please be closer to the microphone. Good morning. For 60 years, my family has been working with the animal husbandry, and I am the third generation representative of that family. What do we do? We have 2 factories, and we also have 3 farmers, and we are actually managing the animal husbandry, the bovines. Right now in Turkey, we are using those closed systems for the animal husbandry. We are managing those animal husbandry for breeding, and at the same time we are actually making hybridization. Mr. Hakkı, hello, from Yıldızlar Yatırım Holding, Investment Holding. We are actually present in the forestry, in the fertilizers. Today I will be speaking about the fertilizer. Thank you. Maes, a short introduction.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for giving us the chance to be here. Sorry that I don't speak Turkish, but I hope you will all understand my English as well. A family farm, as you say, a young farmer. Together with my brother, we produce approximately 1.1 million liters of milk on the farm, and then in cooperation with other farms, we process it into butter, cheese, powder, and so on. And then besides that, indeed, chairing the European Council of Young Farmers, representing 2 million young farmers in Europe, not the European Union, but in Europe.
In Europe, yes. Overall Europe, not
Overall
EU only.
In Europe. So
Evet,
even
sadece Avrupa Birliği ülkeleri değil, bütün Avrupa'daki Genç Çiftçiler Konseyi'nin başında olduğunu, 1 milyon ton üzerinde bir üretimleri olduğundan söz etti. Muharrem Beyciğim çok herkesin bildiği maruf isimlerden olmakla birlikte kısa bir
The opposition part, but please introduce yourself, because Sütaş is actually the leader, especially in the milk production. Let's listen to you. Mr. Hakan, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I also would like to make use of this opportunity to greet our participants. Distinguished participants, I'm so glad to be with you here. And I also would like to extend my gratitude to each and all of you. Of course, these kinds of summits are revitalizing friendships, and I also would like to thank Capital and Economist magazine to Mr. Rauf, and I also would like to congratulate them for providing us such an important platform. Hopefully, a good example of sustainability, this organization will be going on in the upcoming years, because only thanks to such platforms we are able to see our friends once in a year. Thank you so much. Let's change the order, if you like. I would like to start with Mr. Muharrem. Muharrem, as you know, in Turkey, there is approximately 18 to 20 million tons of milk production, and 50% of them are being produced in the integrated facility like Yorsan, Sek, Eker, Ülker, Danone. These are the important brands of the integrated milk production. And also, in addition to integrated milk production, there is the dairy farming. And as a family, he is actually present in this sector, you are also implementing horizontal and vertical integration, and you created a very important global brand, and you are still investing on your brand. In Turkey, only 1,570 enterprises have actually those livestock. And when we take a closer look to the inflation, the food prices were quite important, especially when we were speaking about the inflation. And in addition to that, the meat and the milk products are indeed contributing to the inflation. Although the core inflation is stable, if you add the food prices to the inflation, then there are certain fluctuations in terms of the inflation, and those prices are having a negative impact on our inflation rates. Of course, milk is not a dispensable product, so my question to you is, we are speaking about the inflation raising products. Raw milk was quite cheap in the recent years, and 1.53 liras, and according to my information, high quality milk products was 1.6 liras. And the integrated producers were speaking about increasing the price of the raw milk. But of course, there is a limitation, and there cannot be further increase in those prices. And there are certain complaints coming from the integrated milk production facilities, and there is also this informal economy coming from dairy farming, and also there is this under-the-counter production which is not in line with the European standards. Could you please speak about milk? In abroad, for example, if the milk supply is so much, you can actually convert it to the milk powder and you can export it, and it actually reflects into our prices. Of course, when there is this shortages of milk in Turkey, we can actually import it as a milk powder. But could you please speak about those increasing prices? Well, you asked such a long question. I mean, you actually generalized it and wanted me to speak about milk. So, distinguished friends, of course, dairy farming and the milk is a very important and accessible product for the animal food, because the population of the world is increasing and the urbanization is going on. So as we urbanized even more, and since we will be in need of ready-made food, and we also think that the ratio of the mid-income class will be increasing, and as a result, this part of the society actually will ask for the animal proteins. And since this is the case, we have to be highly successful in terms of the milk production in the long term, because milk is one of the basic and fundamental food sources, and it is one of the indeed highly reasonable food sources, animal food and animal protein sources. And we have to develop this business not only in Turkey but also in globe. The arable land of the world is only 20% of the total area, and this will not increase in the future, and 70% of the water is used for irrigational purposes in the agriculture sector. So And we still have bottlenecks as a result. Of course, we want to increase production, but the water resources are scarce and the arable lands are scarce. So it is really important what kind of methodology that we are going to employ. So the technology, the digital industrialization is actually needed. The needs are clear and the resources are limited, which will satisfy those needs. And we have to make use of those limited sources in order to satisfy the needs. So, if I have to make an evaluation on the Turkish side, Turkey is a little bit more lucky because our arable lands are 30% and the water resources are much more sufficient. At least we can sustain our self-sufficiency. We have such an infrastructure. But, however, and unfortunately, we are not able to give and produce the enough amounts of those basic and fundamental foods. We are producing 20 million tons of milk in Turkey, and 10 million tons of milk is actually being sold through a company, and the other 10 million tons of the milk is being consumed without, we have no idea about its standards inside of the family and such. So I do believe that Turkey was not able to make use of this opportunity to these days. The Anatolian lands where the agriculture has this historical know-how. Unfortunately, on those lands, we were not able to modernize the agriculture sector and shape it to answer to the needs of the modern society. How we can overcome this problem? The guide will be the European Union. In the modernization of the custom unions agreement, the agriculture together with the service sector is actually given priority, and we will be speaking about the integration of these sectors. And when the European Union became the guide for Turkey, Turkey started to prepare himself. And in terms of the institutional structure, we actually have done a lot of things in order to prepare ourselves. So on the institutional infrastructure, we are lucky because we have a strategic plan. And within the framework of this strategic plan, we have to manage our businesses. And one of the most important thing to be done will be to increase our efficiency, because our efficiency and productivity is low. And this is actually creating a weak point in the national economy as well. In Turkey, we have 27 million employees, and 20% of them are involved in the agriculture sector, approximately 5.3 million people. And this ratio is almost the same for the industrial sector. And 54 to 55% is actually being involved in the service sector. Okay, we are employing 5.5 million people in the agriculture, but their production is at the level of $11,000, and it is at the level of $35,000 in the service sector, and it is over $40,000 in the industrial sector. So this can actually say to us that an important part of the agricultural employees are not satisfying our needs. So we have to increase our efficiency, and we have to increase this ratio from $11,000 to maybe $20,000. If we can do this, then it will contribute to the GDP of Turkey. I mean, when I say $11,000, it means per person. So if you multiply it with the 5.3 million people, then it means that we can actually contribute to the GDP by $53 billion. And if we can double it, then it will mean $125 billion. And I also believe that agriculture might be one of the areas in which Turkey can actually increase its national income and its GDP. And it is right now obligatory for the Turkish economy to focus in this field. So, in a nutshell, there is actually a strong point in the infrastructure. We have the potential because of the geography. But we have to do an agricultural reform. And I also believe that digital technologies and the fourth industrial revolution, I believe, will give us certain opportunities. And we have such a hope in that regard. But also in the agricultural sector, there is this aging, the population is aging, and the adaptation of the aging population to the digital technologies is actually becoming harder and harder. So we have to do something. As you can see, there is the president of the Young Farmers European Council. The European Union understood it. So they actually established the Council of the Young Farmers. So they are trying to change the generation. And this young generation will be much more competent to use the technology, and that's what the European Union is trying to do. And we have to do the same thing. You said if we establish a Turkish Council of Young Farmers, how many people will be a member of it? Well, we have to find members to the Turkish Council of Young Farmers if we have to establish it one day. Because all the capital should have an interest in this field, and the young generation should show an interest in this field. We are in need of entrepreneurs with the capital accumulation who can take risks, and we are also in need of young generation who can use the latest technology. And since this is the case,
then what will the milkmen or the dairy owners are doing? This is the general situation in agriculture, and what are the milkmen are doing, dairymen are doing in Turkey. In dairymanship, we have developed a lot. When I have started this business, 7 million tons of milk was being produced for Turkey. We were speaking such kind of an amount, and we were trying to sell it. Right at the moment, we are speaking about 19 millions, 20 millions of tons. We have come to that level, and this is bringing us to the global ranking in the 10th or 11th place. This is a great opportunity. However, in parentheses, our export amount is not very high in level. So we are not contributing enough. We are speaking on our own, and we are not able to produce enough for our own sources. So there is an opportunity which is hidden here. When it comes to the milkman, dairyman back, we have reached up to 20 million tons of production. However, this is a 40-year-old story. I'm finishing Sütaş. My company is filling for the second year. And we have taken very slow. We have taken the path very slowly. This opportunist field has not been used efficiently. Young communities, of course, do not have high level of purchasing power, buying power. In order to feed this community a better way, in order to develop the mental capacity of our new generation, this business needs to speed up. In the last 10 years, Turkey in Turkey, we have started to distribute school milk to the children at schools. We should have done this long before. I'm sorry, but you have used your time so long. How we can drink the cost-effective and healthy milk? In Turkey, the community deserves a certain quality. And I have warned about this quality. I have tried to make people fearful about this. When you make people fearful, people are keeping that question mark in their mind. Milk, that packaged milk, is it going to make us ill? Is it going to make us cancer? Such kind of big question marks are being asked. You are trying to make your own yogurt at home. You are seeking for natural milk. This is the main source. Guarantee us our health. You're asking for that. So such kind of fearful merchants should be sent away. But for all of the bacteria and for you, milk is a very good source. A milk without having any package is getting with all of its bacteria to your houses, and Brucella will be entering your homes, tuberculosis will be entering your houses. Forget about that milk from the milkman. And for fermenting the yogurt at home, you know the genetics. There is a live there is, yeah, the yeast should, the fermentation should be verified. You cannot do it at home. It needs to be done in the laboratory. Please give up fermenting your yogurt at home. What are the Turkish milkmen are doing to you? How they are confusing you? We are doing our best in order to provide you the best source. We are producing our own milk, and we do have the farms, and we are operating our factories with the fertilizers of those companies, and we are bringing you the milk. All of that sun, soil, and water are being recycled to you as a milk. For example, the sun has just fed the corn, the animal ate the corn, and later on it made milk, and the milk has been brought to you. So that cycle is also transformed into another energy cycle. In order to make this energy cycle sustainable, this basic food has got an infrastructure in Turkey. If everybody do their business in the best way, everybody may drink and eat healthy food and healthy milk and yogurt. Okay. Ahmet Hacıince, he's a very young businessman, and he's the chairman of the board in Hacıince group of companies. When we look at the areas of forage in Turkey, it has declined, and the production of meat has got a 150,000 tons of gap. And we are also exporting the heifers, and we are counting them as the local meat. How we can make our people eat cost-effective meat? You declare that this is not a problem of meat, this is the problem of actually the grass that we feed. Without increasing the production, how you can increase the prices? The red meat production has declined with the forage lessening. We do urbanization, and with the intervention of Ministry of Forestry, they have decreased the amount of forest areas. So, Central Bank has based the inflation rate on the red meat. You are buying the animal with dollar. So you are basing on forex in your oil, in your diesel, in your meat. So how you can speak about declining the inflation if you're basing it on the red meat? Actually, when you look at the structure of husbandry, animal husbandry in Turkey, it is passing from father to son. And even we are not able to find any efficient, for example, shepherd to recruit, because they're asking for more than 3,000 salary per month. And if we do not have any refugees, we do not have anyone to shepherd our animals. The production is not increasing. We need to increase the production in order to make the meat prices cost effective. And 607,000 of, for example, heifers are being imported. So from the very beginning, that meat does not matter of bringing that heifer. They are bringing it for cutting it, for killing and getting meat from that. And of course, our Ministry of Culture has Ministry of Agriculture has just mentioned cows. We do have a high amount of cows, but they are dying. I mean, 500,000 of cows are dying per year. The number of the cows which are dying in smaller scale countries is equal to a smaller scale countries yearly basis. So we do have an ongoing project right now about the cows and the survival of the cows. Okay, we are speaking about the actually we are speaking about the husbandry, forage husbandry. Actually, when we speak about forage husbandry, it is not present in our country. It is not happening, taking place in our country, because we say that we cannot do this. We do have very lazy generation which is taking care of this husbandry activities. They say we don't have any grass, we don't have any rain. When you go to the United States, why are you always going to New York? In the deserts, they are having agriculture. In a place when there is no water, they are doing husbandry. Australia, for example, they are having angus, for example. I have brought angus for the very first time in 2008 with a plane to Turkey. We have selected animals in a desert. When we look at Anatolia, they always have, they say that we only have cereals, we only have the small type of sheep, for example. We need to increase the level of forage husbandry. In Uruguay, it is costing 1 lira per day. It is costing 10 liras for us. Montafon, or when we look at the, for example, mandates or buffaloes, for example. Actually, they have in Zana, for example. Zana is coming from Anatolia. We need to speak frankly. When you look at the types of the, for example, sheep, it is coming from Anatolia. The seeds are the same. For example, when we look at the mainland of, for example, wheat, it is coming from Anatolia, but we are not able to have our national wheat right at the moment. So we will not be able to buy any, for example, calf from Uruguay with our money, because it will not only be sufficient for their own country. When you go to Europe, if you ask them to give you 500, for example, calves, they will not be able to provide it for you. We need to produce our own calves. We need to understand. We need to produce the animals which is suitable according to our geography. Uruguay people are doing like that. American people are doing it like that. They do not bring a breed which is not able to survive in those lands. What happened today? Sheep and goats. Well, actually, the shepherds are being the problem. When you look at for example, forts, they become very small. The forts are empty in the village. Since they do not have any animals, the number of the fires which are occurring because of the dry grass is increasing day by day. The animal is something which is very beneficial for the forest. And it was forbidden to make the animals, sheep and goats, to enter to the forests. In the past, now they have terminated that rule. For example, who is going? The owner of that land is not allowing us to carry on the operations, husbandry operations on his land. And I'm telling him that, okay, let me provide you the animals for husbandry, you just breed them, and he's not accepting that. To protect the forest, the state has got 15,000 staff to protect it. 15,000 guards, but we don't have any forest guards, for example. You are looking on the screen. When you go to a forest rented, you are seeing a 4-story building which was brought by the state in order to bring electricity. So this is actually, this is something which has been transformed into an income. And you have turned into the system into an easy coming income. And so the people are not willing to do husbandry because they need to work for that. So it is becoming a dream if you bring that easy income to those lands. So we need to produce more, we need to develop the forage husbandry, we need to have a general directorate, we need to take the support of the security forces. Otherwise, we will not be proceeded one step further. Thank you very much. You have really acknowledged us a lot. It was so much enlightening. One last thing to be said. Last but not least, we have become a so fast food generation. So they are seeking for everything fast. I'm asking their social habits, for example, when was the last time you have gone to a cinema? And they say never. So what is that social life you are speaking about? Going to a shopping mall and eat, if you eat dinner, it is 100 liras, and if you go to a cinema, it is 200 liras. So you're not able to socialize. Well, I'm the doorkeeper and it's got an insurance. Well, actually, if you do the farming, if you do the agriculture, there is an incentive which is being provided from the state, which is more than the income that you get in the urban. Why don't you keep yourself and your family in the village? And there is a survival. I mean, it is able to do savings in the village if you stay in your village. No, they prefer to come to the cities.
Sorry, in Turkish. Türkiye'de ne olup bittiğini biraz öğrendim.
You have heard what is going on in
genç
Turkey
nüfusu tutma
in
sorunları var.
So there
Devletin
is,
organizasyonu var.
The lack of organization on the
Şimdi
state
bize
side, and we
Avrupa'da
do have
böyle
a
bir iyi bir best practices olarak neyi söyleyebilirsin? Gençleri nasıl o sahada tutalım? Nasıl hayvan varlığımızı çoğaltalım?
Field of husbandry in the field of agriculture. So from an observer from outside, what are you doing? Since you're a very small country, but you do have a wealth coming from husbandry.
Yes, indeed, thank you. Well, first of all, also in Europe, things are not perfect. We also have an average age of farmers above 50. We only have 5.6% of farmers beneath the age of 35. So we also have that same problem, that same challenge of generational renewal. Now, the points that we put forward as main challenges, and I would divide them in 4 different points. First of all is a lack of profitability, and that is the major one. You are, well, the majority of you are active in business. No business will survive if there is no profitability in that business, and we cannot expect that young people from any background would invest and take risk in agriculture if there is no profitability, if there is no site for a decent income. How do we create that? I think a lot has to be done in levels of market information and transparency. Farmers of the 21st century are no longer the farmers that we have known for in the past centuries. That is no longer just producing. As a farmer, you are combining a technical skill with an economical skill, and any business, in order to move on a market, you need to be informed about that market. And then young farmers, of course, in particular, since they have a very vulnerable situation, because you are young and you don't have any money built up in the past, you need some decent tools to play on that market, to self-manage your risk. For example, I'm personally a big fan of what future markets can do. in providing me the opportunity of shifting some risk away by being active on more than just that direct sales market. So profitability, that is the far most...
First profitable, but then there are four. What is the second one?
So the second one is access to land. And that is something that we see in Europe, but we also see globally. I'm in contact with young farmers from across the globe a few times a year, and that is a challenge that we all face. Any agricultural production has its very core in land.
Livestock
mostly in a direct way for grass, for feed, or in indirect way as a production
And the
method.
third one?
But maybe on land we have to make sure, and there is a very huge responsibility for governments across the world to make sure that an allocation of land use, that is being directed towards young farmers. A fourth one is a combined one of access to knowledge and finance. Knowledge, as I said before, we have to make sure that we look at farmers more as entrepreneurs and not as much as the basic growers, like we have seen them in the past decades or the past centuries. Capacity building is crucial for that. So investing in young people, the bright minds, making sure that we feed those bright minds with knowledge and capacity to increase. And of course you can only use that knowledge, those capacities to produce in an economy if you can meet that with enough finance. And young people, by definition, don't have any money because you are young. So their private sector and governments have a big role to play in providing support and put some decent figures in there that young people need a certain degree of education, that young people need to showcase that they have a decent business plan, but then if they do, make sure that there is money to help
finance,
them. Yeah. And then a final one, and has already been touched upon shortly, since there is a huge link between agriculture and land, agriculture is taking place in rural, often remote areas. We cannot accept that young people of today would have to choose for a future which means they would become second-range citizens within a country or within a society. On today, we are here on top of a mountain, and this morning I was able to order a new feed load with my phone on top of a mountain. There are a lot of young farmers across the world and also in Turkey who on their own farm don't have access to internet. How can you in the 21st century run a business when you don't have access to internet? How can you expect that you raise a family when you don't have access to hospitals, to healthcare, to education, to schools?
So the auxiliary facilities and digitization.
Yes, make sure that rural areas are as vibrant as non-rural areas.
Excellent. Actually, karlılığın olmadığından, araziye ulaşımda sıkıntı olduğundan, bir kapasite yaratmakta, yani scale etmekte bir
are being the major problems. And the new generation's projections needs to be profitable, and of course the state should support the young generation. Last but not least, digitalization and access to the internet, for example, at least access to some technological facilities and making use of the social facilities are essential. Young generation is not preferring to go such kind of remote distances. Keeping them to distance zones are very crucial, and so you need to provide some social fare for them, social aid to them. So this was a summary of our last speaker, and we will be speaking about the fertilizers. Hakkı, Yıldız is there, yes. Export is very important, and some import activities are taking place. Even the fertilizers are very important. In natural fertilizers, for example, are coming from the husbandry sector. I don't know whether you have followed our presentation or not. Agriculture is very crucial for Turkey. And we have had a survey about that. In summary, what we are aiming to inform you is, in Turkey, the agricultural activities are alarming. So there is an urgent revision need is present in front of us. When we look at the public situation, the community situation, we are not giving great importance to agriculture. There is lack of awareness about agriculture. When we look at the Turkish lands, in Turkey, only 6% of the lands are productive. 6%. When we look at the organic material, in the content of the soil is only 2%. We named the land, the earth, as the motherland, but it became a grandmother. It is getting old. Somehow we are losing our earth, our land. In 1950s, 20 million, in 2000, 75 million, and we will be reaching to 100 million of population by 2050s. 110 million population is being fed. And we are speaking such kind of an incredible source. How we are going to do this? On one side, we are losing our sources, and on the other side, we do have an increasing population. I have mentioned this in a few platforms. I do not, I resemble the country with no agriculture to a kitchenless house. So, can you imagine a house without any kitchen? Then you need to order it from the internet or you need to buy it from a restaurant. This is not something sustainable. This is not something cost-effective. This is the situation in Turkey. If you do not have an agriculture, we don't have a kitchen. So we cannot speak about growth. We cannot speak about healthy development. What's happening? Why don't we have any agriculture? Why we are losing our agriculture? We have spoken about increasing population and urbanization. And we have spoken about the, of course, construction which is taking the place, and also the law, the legal system, with law of inheritance, and also not being modernized agricultural approach is causing this result. Yesterday was the World Water Day. We have celebrated that. Because of wrong irrigation, we do have less productivity. 115 per hectare, per 100 hectare, is the amount which is being pronounced. In a normal fertilizing situation, there is a capacity, there is a potential of 20-25% of an increase. Some people are fertilizing very high, some of them are not fertilizing. Ignorant agricultural activities. As CEJA, we are saying that to the farmers. Do you know which fertilizer you need to use for your soil? We have learned X fertilizer from our father. We don't have such kind of an approach. In such kind of fertilizing activity, the organic material of the content is decreasing. Instead of increasing the productivity, you are decreasing it. So there is the matter of education and the education of the human source. It is ignorance is the biggest problem. First of all, we need to understand agriculture in the right way. 80 million population is going to be fed from that source. So we cannot reach to a certain point with the import activities on economical side, on the developmental side. So we need to develop new projects actually. I'm one of the players in this business as a fertilizer manufacturer. What we are discussing right now is a national concern. And as CEJA, I need to touch upon that point. We do have 5 minutes left, and if you let me to say, maybe you may have a last word to say. What are your head titles for the newspapers? You are generally using very tough statements. It is because of the conditions, I think. Yes, we are coming to the end of the road. Our guest has touched upon a very important point about the young farmers. He has, I'm going to say something. They are not giving their daughter to a shepherd. In our tradition, they are not. After 2001, they were not giving their daughters to get married to a banker. Now they are not giving their daughters to get married to a shepherd. So, we do have a cost. For example, you are buying with 4x, you are feeding with 4x, and you are feeding the animal with 4x, and you are not replacing the money that you have paid for the animal. But you could accomplish it. I have done it when I was doing I was working in the forage business. In Antalya, I do have a land that I'm doing forage activities. Many people have declined did not accept my proposals. We are taking Kars Ardahan animals, and we are giving 5 more breeds from that animal. We are looking at the structures of the animal. We are checking the skeleton, and we are feeding them according to their anatomy. We do have F1 hybridization, for example, F1 hybridization, F2 hybridization. We do have Kars Zavod. Yes, exactly what we are doing is the reclamation. We do have the local races right now. And for the foreign races, we are creating a management system, the race management system. And race management system, QR code traceability system is being used. From which breed it is coming from, does it have any antibiotics or not, any treatments or not. But of course, if the young generation is escaping from husbandry, if the young generation is escaping from farming, then we will not be able to speak about productivity. Hakkı Bey, what is your last words? If you let me to speak, I will continue with a topic which I have just started. Farmer and the agricultural population needs to be acknowledged, needs to be educated and trained. And as the group, as the company, from farm to the table days we are organizing, what is the significance of these days? In different 5 regions, with 5 different organizations, we are collecting the farmers, and we are training them how to do the right fertilizer and right irrigation and agricultural techniques to be implemented. Distinguished professors from the Faculty of Agriculture are joining and contributing us. We are educating them. We are not only educating them, we are taking samples from the soils, and we are carrying on analysis in our laboratories, and we are providing prescriptions for them. And we are saying that this is your soil. You need to fertilize it like this, you need to irrigate it like this. Some of them are implementing, some of them are doing what they have learned from their father and turning their back. 80 million. And 8 billion financial sources which is being given by the Ziraat Bank. The other one is being distributed between the banks. We said from sea to soil. For example, when you're taking the photograph of stink bug, for example, you're taking its photograph. Digitalization is a very crucial compound. So you need to bring new technologies. For example, if you photo a stink bug, you need to send it to the laboratory or to a factory or to the related bodies to take the preventive measures. We are giving prescriptions, but they are not implementing what we are assigning them to do. So what are we going to do? We have found mentor farmers. We said that, okay, on your land, allocate a part of yours to us. On behalf of you, we will be making our own fertilizer, and we will be applying our own prescriptions. From fertilization to the harvesting, we have carried on some samples, some pilot projects. And the rest of the land has been operated according to his own fashion. After seeing the benefits of that pilot project, okay, Jan, what is your last word?
We are moving towards an even bigger global population, so there is an absolute necessity for further food production across the world. there is a whole generation of young people who are still very passionate about agriculture. It is still the most beautiful profession in the world. Make sure that not only a government, not only the industry itself, but the whole economic fabric of every country fully supports that generation of young people, and I'm sure we'll find a future.
Aslında gençler için de çok çekici bir sektör. Onların da bununla ilgili hevesli.
For the young generation as well, but it has to be supported. And in all of the countries, I believe agriculture will be one of the most important sectors as well. Well, Mr. Muharrem. Well, as I conclude my speech, agriculture is a very risky area as well, because the production is actually going on in the natural conditions. The resilience is really important, and this new concept is being discussed in the agriculture. How can we increase the agricultural resilience of those companies? And the insurance systems should be actually working appropriately to that resilience. And Turkey is actually allocating an important part of its GDP as a support to the agricultural production. It is approximately $20 billion. But the European Union and the developed countries are allocating 5.5 $5.5 billion to the R&D, to the agricultural sector, but in Turkey, unfortunately, we are only allocating $150 million to the R&D, so we have to increase this amount to $1.5 billion or $2 billion. Only after that, the agriculture can become sustainable in Turkey. And as a result of this harmonization process with the European Union, the Turkish agriculture might be sustainable. Otherwise, there is a risk. Well, Mr. Ahmet told me that I have a problem with the bankers, so we will listen to him. Then I am very proud that I finished on time, and as Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of the Republic of Turkey, said that the agriculturer who produce is actually the masters of the society. And we have helmet, by the way, then we will actually take a group photo. Well, with regards to support, I really actually am agreeing with him. But the most important theme for the agricultural support in Turkey is to actually preserve our youngsters, especially in the places that they live. So such kind of a policy should actually be implemented. Since the bankers are here, their general directors are here, I would like to give an example. In 2010, I started making imports from Hungary, and from the European Development Fund, they came to our farm, and the farmer was actually yelling, and I was actually showing off my English then, and I asked him, why don't you give money, funds to this farmer, because we are going to actually, he said, sir, with regards to European Development Bank, if you would like to receive a fund, a credit, then you have to work in this sector for 15 years. Doctors actually work in the agriculture sector in Turkey, because we should also discuss whether agriculture might be your second profession. You have to love this job. If you are not getting close with the animals, then you cannot be successful, because if you even change the breeder of the animal, you have a big love with the cows. We know, you have a great love with the cows. Well, Mr. Hussein, we would like you to invite here. We will have a group photo.
Evet, çok anlamlı bir fotoğraf.
Well, it is a very meaningful photo, by the way. As we were taking this photo, I also would like to make a very important announcement. Everybody is asking for the lunch break. Our lunch break will be after the Vodafone session. Please hold on a little bit more.